There has to be a point where working Americans finally look at the deal they are being offered and say, enough. I don't know exactly where that point is. Maybe we're already approaching it. For generations, Americans were taught a basic formula. You get up, you go to work, you put in your hours, you pay your bills, you try to save something. Maybe eventually you buy a house. Maybe you raise a family. Maybe you take a vacation once in a while. And after decades of working, hopefully you retire with enough money to enjoy whatever time you have left. Nobody expected life to be easy, but people expected work to lead somewhere. What's the part? That's the part that feels like it's disappearing. Today you can work full time and still feel like you're constantly trying to catch up. You can get a raise and barely notice it because something else increased in price. You can make more money than you made 5 years ago and somehow feel poorer. And that isn't entirely imaginary. A 2026 Federal Reserve worker study found low and moderate income workers repeatedly describing life in terms of survival, financial stress, rising costs, and wages that weren't stretching far enough. That's a dangerous psychological change, because there's a difference between working hard toward a better future and working hard simply to prevent your life from collapsing. People can tolerate struggle when they believe the struggle has a destination. You work overtime because you're saving for a house. You take the second job because you are trying to get ahead. You skip the vacation because you're building something. You sacrifice today because tomorrow is supposed to be better. But what happens when tomorrow never arrives? What happens when the second job isn't building savings anymore? It's buying groceries. What happens when overtime isn't paying for a vacation? It's paying the electric bill. What happens when the raise doesn't improve your lifestyle? It just keeps your lifestyle from getting worse. That's when something starts changing inside people. And housing might be one of the clearest examples. The National Low Income Housing Coalition calculated that in 2026, a full-time worker nationally would need to earn about $30 an hour to afford a modest one-bedroom rental at fair market rent without spending more than 30% of income. The average renter wage was $24.84 an hour. Think about what that means. We're not talking about mansions. We're not talking about luxury condos. We're talking about a modest place to live. The old promise was that if you worked, you could participate in society. Now millions of people feel like they're paying admission just to survive another month. Rent, groceries, insurance, transportation, utilities. Your phone bill, healthcare, debt payments. Then another subscription, another fee, another increase, another company telling you that unfortunately prices have changed, another landlord raising the rent, another insurance renewal, another grocery trip where the total at the register makes you stare at the screen, wondering what you even bought. And eventually, people start cutting things. First, you cut luxuries, then restaurants, then vacations, then entertainment, then new clothes. Then you keep the old car longer. Then you stop thinking about buying a house. Then you postpone having children. Then you stop going places because leaving the house costs money. Eventually, there isn't much left to cut. The Federal Reserve's latest household report found that price increases remained Americans' most common financial concern, while people struggling to cover bills commonly responded by cutting other expenses or paying bills late. That's where I think the bigger question begins. What happens when people have already cut everything?